Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s with this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, 1987 at online booksellers everywhere. Daniel Penny, a former U.S. Marine, surrendered to the NYPD to face second-degree manslaughter charges. Now, earlier this month, 24-year-old Daniel Penny was riding on an F train, and as the train was approaching Broadway Lafayette Street, he ran into Jordan Neely, who was having a mental health episode. And Daniel Penny, allegedly fearing for his life, decided to confront Jordan Neely and placed him into a chokehold in the hopes of waiting for police to come and take him. However, Penny left Jordan Neely in that chokehold for over 15 minutes, and after leaving him in this chokehold, Jordan Neely never regained consciousness and wound up dying later on in a hospital. Now, in the aftermath of the death of Jordan Neely, a former Michael Jackson impersonator who had mental health problems, there was a firestorm of outrage all across New York City, and there were demands all across the city to see Daniel Penny be punished for what they believed was his murder. And as people were protesting all across New York City, tensions were starting to rise, similar to what happened in 2020 after the death of George Floyd and the viral video that basically recorded the demise of George Floyd. We were seeing the same type of anger and outrage as related to the death of Daniel Penny. And things were starting to get tense here in New York City after one day of protesting where there was a confrontation between police and protesters, and things were getting so hot that the NYPD actually arrested a reporter and allegedly attacked several protesters. And with things getting so tense, the hesitant prosecutor, Alvin Bragg, finally decided to go out here and bring charges against Daniel Penny. Now, when I take a critical examination of these charges being brought against Daniel Penny, they are basically an empty symbolic gesture being done by the New York prosecutor's office. And they're being done in order to try to squelch all of the anger and the outrage to prevent the city from exploding into a riot, similar to what happened in 2020 after the death of George Floyd. Because after the death of George Floyd during the pandemic, basically the entire country erupted in rage, and as the country erupted in rage, the country was basically on its wits' end. And in order to try to pacify the public, the Minnesota prosecutors back there at Minneapolis basically went out here and had to file charges against Derek Chauvin as related to the murder of George Floyd. And they themselves basically were hesitant to do this the same way Alvin Bragg is hesitant to go out here and file these charges. And he basically looked for the easiest charge to file. And again, I find that to be quite interesting. You have Alvin Bragg, he's hesitant to go out here and prosecute Daniel Penny for an alleged murder that took place on video. However, he was quick to go out here and file charges against Jonathan Majors as related to an alleged domestic violence incident. He said he had nothing he could do to stop these alleged charges against Jonathan Majors, a black man, but he took all of the time in the world as related to the charges as related to this white former Marine who was connected to the NYPD. He took all the time in the world and went out here and did everything he could in his power to avoid trying to charge Daniel Penny for the crime we all saw on video, but for the crime that did not happen, I believe, as related to Jonathan Majors. He quickly went out here filing charges and is still looking to work with alleged victims. But in the case of a black man who lost his life, he's not looking to go out here and actively look to file charges. And that really shows me how much of a bootlicking Alvin Bragg is, and how Alvin Bragg isn't about justice. No, he's just about looking to preserve the institution of white supremacy. And what's really sad here about the whole case of Jordan Neely is it's showing us all that skin folk ain't kinfolk, because in the case of Alvin Bragg, as he looks to allegedly try to avoid prosecuting this case, he's looking for the easiest way out as related to the charges as related to Daniel Penny. Because a second-degree manslaughter charge, as I see it, basically isn't enough in this case, because as I see it, this should be at least second or third degree murder, if not first degree murder, because Daniel Penny's actions showed intent and malice of forethought. Because if you're on a train with a mentally ill individual, the first thing anybody thinks to do in that situation, especially a longtime New Yorker like myself who's been running the subway for years, is to get away from this individual and move to a location where you're not in their vicinity of their episode. As someone who's been riding the train for over 35 years, when I see individuals like this who are having an episode, what I do is, if I'm on a subway car, I move to another car, either waiting for the train to stop and then getting out of that car and then moving to another car, or using the side doors on either end of the car. And I recently had an episode just on Thursday when I was on a bus where there was an individual who was having an episode. And when I saw this individual having an episode, what I did was I rang for the bus stop, and it was one stop away from the one where I was supposed to get off. And I got off that bus because I said, if I see this individual acting erratically, the first thing I do is look to leave that bus and not look to try to stay on this bus, because this person is just erratic at that point. And while I had to walk a couple of blocks to my destination stop, I was thinking about my safety, and you would think that Daniel Penny would have thought of that, but no, he wasn't thinking of that. What this beta male was looking to do was look to be a hero, and as he was looking to be a hero, he thought, oh, I'll subdue Jordan Neely, and with this chokehold until the police arrive. But the whole thing was he held this man for an extended period of time, and this led to him losing his life. And instead of punishing this vigilante to discourage other New Yorkers from participating in vigilantism, Alvin Bragg was looking to go out here and bootlick to those white people in New York, and also looking to create a covert contract with further abroad, hoping that by giving a pass to Daniel Penny, this will get him a job with the Biden administration, or a job with Kathy Hochul, or hopefully lead to him basically replacing Letitia James here. So Alvin Bragg put his own career aspirations ahead of the safety of New Yorkers, because when you go out here and give a pass to vigilantes, what you do is encourage more vigilantism and more people looking to participate in vigilante action. And that further adds fire to the powder keg of New York City, where crime is basically looking like it's out of control. And as crime looks like it's out of control, people are feeling powerless. And all this does is enable more people to believe that they have to act like Daniel Penny, acting to take the law into their own hands. So this bootlicking prosecutor looking to get brownie points with white folks is basically making the city less safe by hesitating to to go out here and try to prevent the prosecution of Daniel Penny for a crime he possibly did commit that has been shown in a viral video. What Alvin Bragg has done is look to try to give Daniel Penny a pass, but what he doesn't understand is that his interpretation of the law from a bootleg's perspective is basically making New York a less safe place, and it's adding to the tensions that are already in the city as related to the crime, and it's also adding to the tensions as related to race. And New York Mayor Eric Adams further escalated things by also making statements like, let's see what happens with the prosecution of this individual, and then also not dealing with his members of law enforcement who escalated a candlelight vigil into a violent incident here in New York City. So these black politicians basically are adding to the racial tensions and making it look like there's possibly a fix in for Daniel Penny. And that fix is the thing that makes more black people not trust the criminal justice system, because if you've got a fix in for a white individual against a mentally ill black man, what that does is make it like a black person's life doesn't matter. And again, if the least of us cannot have rights in this country, then the greatest of us should be scared, because the same type of tactics of vigilantism and lack of prosecution, this can lead to anybody's life being put in jeopardy. Because what happened to Daniel Penny can happen to anyone in New York City, regardless of race. All it takes is some individual to say, oh, I'm feeling afraid, and they believe it is their right to put their hands on someone. And that's where the law has to come in and set a boundary as related to individuals like Daniel Penny, because it's not your job to go out here and restrain an individual like a Jordan Neely who is having an episode. If this individual is having an episode, it is for law enforcement to come in and try to deal with that individual. And it's up to law enforcement to do that, because they have the authority to do that. When you have citizens going out here and looking to mete out street justice, again, this is where we wind up violating our Constitution. And instead of us having a policy of innocent until proven guilty, we have individuals taking the law into their own hands. And when you have individuals taking the law into their own hands, what you get is chaos. And when you have chaos like this, it shows that there's a complete failure of leadership. And that's where New York Mayor Eric Adams has completely failed as related to New York City. I mean, he's basically let the city fall completely apart while he's talked about being so-called tough on crime. But we see that he's not tough at all, because you have a prosecutor who refuses to prosecute criminals, and you have a prosecutor who's more focused on trying to take down celebrities like Jonathan Majors and Donald Trump, rather than focusing on dealing with criminals, and has said he refuses to deal with criminals. And again, that's inept leadership. Moreover, you have a mayor who refuses to hold this individual accountable because he thinks, oh, I'm going to get a pass with these white individuals. And again, this all shows the failure of black leadership. And that's really the saddest thing here, because here you have New York City, which is now run by a black prosecutor, has a black mayor, and has black city council people running the city council. But we don't have any of the order. In fact, what we have here is a kangaroo court basically set up to give this white man a pass. And that's really sad, because it shows that while we have blacks in power, they still are doing the bidding and dirty work of white supremacy. That is the saddest part as related to this case, because this second-degree manslaughter, basically, as I see it, if Alvin Bragg is dragging his feet as related to this charge, then he's not going to effectively look to prosecute this charge to hold Daniel Penny accountable. No, he's going to hold a kangaroo court where he rubber stamps his behavior. And what's really troubling here is that this is happening in a blue state. And in this blue state, we have a fix similar to the fixes we saw in the states of the Jim Crow South, where white individuals could go out here and commit crimes against black people, and they could go out here and get off scot-free, similar to the way Emmett Till's murderers got a pass for the murder of Emmett Till. And you would never think that that would happen in a blue state, which is supposed to be so-called fairer to blacks than the South, like states like Florida, where George Zimmerman got away. But we see that blue or red both are anti-black. And what's really disturbing to me is you've got black bootlicks going out here and participating in an anti-black campaign to go out here and give a pass to a white man. What's really, again, troubling here is that you've got Alvin Bragg, Manhattan's first black prosecutor, looking to go out here and give a pass to a white man in a so-called tolerant blue state. But that so-called tolerant blue state is showing how it's just as racist as any state in the Jim Crow South, and they're just looking to try to pacify the masses for a moment. And as they look to pacify the masses for a moment, what they're looking to do is go out here and try to make it where they think they will just forgive and forget, and they'll be able to get back to business as usual. That's what this whole charge against Daniel Penny is all about. It's all about pacifying the black masses, and then the Alvin Bragg looking to go out here and put the fix in. Again, the fix is, as I see it, in because he's hesitating to go out here and take any action. Meanwhile, he was eager to go out here and file charges against Donald Trump. He was eager to file charges against Jonathan Majors, and while he said, the charges against Jonathan Majors would be dropped, he's still going on with the case against Jonathan Majors with more enthusiasm than he would against Daniel Penny. And again, that shows me that the first black prosecutor isn't about black people, and he isn't about trying to stop black people from being exploited by the criminal justice system. No, he's a bootlick looking to go out here and do the dirty work of these white supremacists. And this bootlick is, again, not for black people. And again, this is why we have to go out here and vet who we go out here and elect, because skin folk ain't kinfolk. And if we're not picking the candidates, they are not working towards our agenda. This is something that the late David Carroll tried to warn us about as related to these black politicians. He tried to get us all to understand in his classic video, No Hope, No Change for the Negro, to understand that you need to go out here and pick your own candidates, because if you don't pick your own candidates, they're not going to follow your agenda. No, they're going to follow the agenda of those who elected them. And that's what's happening here as related to Daniel Penny. We have a black mayor, a black DA, and black city council people, all and other black politicians in the state senate, all working to do what is in the best interests of white supremacy. And again, in this blue state that is supposed to be so tolerant and so the L word that I cannot use here. Again, these individuals, they go out here and actively look to go out here and oppress other black people, and that is the saddest part of this whole case as related to Jordan Neely. Again, Jordan Neely was a mentally ill individual, and there is no need to, again, put hands on a mentally ill person who is having an episode. Again, I've lived with someone who had mental health issues for all of my life until she passed away just about 2-3 years ago, and I understand that you never have to go that far if somebody's having an episode, and you don't need to go to those lengths at all. No, you always, again, leave that situation and try to and let somebody else handle it. If you're not in any danger, you just walk away. Because I've seen these individuals on the trains myself, again, and the buses here in New York City. And the saddest part is that Jordan Neely was failed, and there's still no plan from Eric Adams on how to deal with the mentally ill and the homeless here in New York City. And we could have prevented a lot of this by investing in some of these people before they wound up becoming mentally ill. We could have gone out here and gotten these people jobs or gotten them some sort of care, but nobody cares in New York about the mentally ill or those with mental health issues until they have an episode, when the whole thing that solved the problem is trying to prevent prevent people from falling through the cracks. And again, we have our New York City politicians who just still doing nothing except waiting until the last minute when things get out of control, and then they want to just go out here and participate in empty symbolic gestures in the hopes of trying to pacify people, trying to avoid a riot. But the whole thing is you're just delaying the inevitable, because if people feel like there is no justice, the city just may wind up exploding sooner rather than later. And now, if you want to learn more about what leads to men like Jordan Neely falling through the cracks, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, You can send a donation to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' Godbreaker in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.